It's not often that humanity collectively goes through a dark night of the soul. And that's been happening. You can tell, because a dark night of the soul, just to summarize that, it's a phrase, it's a figure of speech mystics used to use. It means a time when the old you gets purged away, and then that's the way mystics would describe it. The old self gets purged away, and then you have this mystical revelation of oneness with God. It's pretty cool. But on a day-to-day basis, what it means basically is your life goes to hell in a handbasket, and then you get new opportunities for a different life. You know? Now the mystics go, it's amazing because the old ego gets purged away, and then you begin to see the real you, and it's really cool. And it is cool. And it sounds cool the way they're saying it. But going through it is not exactly cool. That's not really a lightweight thing. Very heavy. It's not when you have sickness, it's several. Or death, several deaths. Not just the loss of a job, it's when your job and your health goes, and friends drop away, and your partner runs away with your friends because they own the business that they stole from you, that make you sick. It's like when a lot of things are going wrong. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as I just said, but one symptom of knowing if it's a dark night is when several things are happening, not one or two. Another way to know is that it's lasting longer than a bad weekend. That's how you know something's heavy is happening, and that's been happening on earth. People collectively shifting. Now, what's amazing though is, people get together on 11/11 years ago, and 2012. Wow, there's going to be a big transformation. The Aztecs say this, the Mayans say that. Everybody gets all ready, and they actually think it's just going to be like, and then UFOs come and give us new information, and everybody, it's a big exciting thing. You cannot rise higher than you're willing to fall. And they forget to put that in the manual, to everybody for planet Earth. Jesus says, you will only rise as far as you'll fall. Meaning, you can only grow spiritually as well as you are willing to go inside. Or, you can only grow in consciousness proportionate to how much you're willing to let the old self die. Okay? And that starts to sound different than just signing everybody up for a big ascension. When you say it that way, it starts to feel very different. All of a sudden, wait a second. I was happy about this concept, rapture, ascension, oneness with God. We are the world. All these wonderful concepts of let's all hang out and live in peace and oneness. Most people, teachers and such, aren't saying, well, wait, I'm sorry, we forgot to tell you. Before that can happen, the old life has to die. So we're all sitting, dear Lord, I'm ready. Show me a life of oneness and love. That's great, but everybody forgets that means the other life has to go. It's as though we're trying to bargain and say, listen, God, we would like you to bring us a new life, and we want it intact and in place before you take anything away. That way, we only get to go from what was to better with no transition, no personal responsibility, no changes. And that's, again, conditions and ego. And it's not going to happen that way, almost ever. Instead, what's going to happen is the old life has to be seen. In A Course in Miracles, it's described as it has to be seen, and you have to learn how valueless the old life was. In other words, the new one doesn't just get to come in. You guys have to take responsibility and own. This was the life I had, and it has no real value for me anymore. Otherwise, it's almost like saying, I'd like to stop a certain addiction, but not until a new addiction comes in to replace it. That's not even a healthy statement. But it's what people try to do. And we're being told, no. You're going to stop your addiction. You're going to actually have to sit and go through the withdrawals of the addiction that you chose and created. Sit with that. I can't take it. Right, so start writing. Let's do some step work. Step work, that's not very nice. That's not fun. I need something stimulating. No, let's try not having ego-based stimulation. Let's let the old life die. It's called purging the old life. So it gets very tricky. I've known people who serial monogamy, they can't go into a relationship until, or end a relationship until they're ready to go into a new one. They have to have a new distraction already in place. That's very much addiction being rampant. So people are wanting miracles in their life. A miracle means a major shift. But a miracle comes into our lives, basically. It's a shift in our lives, but it only comes through a shift first inside, in our consciousness. Again, people are so addiction-oriented, they want a miracle the way they want it. I want this miracle. Spirit's trying to say, if you want a miracle outside, you have to have a miracle inside. If you don't have it inside, it's not a miracle. All it is a manipulation of material, stuff. He calls it in the Course in Miracles magic, meaning like a magic show, not wonderful spiritual magic. He means it's just sleight of hand. You're just manipulating matter. Look at me, I manifested a new job on my own. If you do anything without God, it isn't real. You manipulate it. And if you manipulated matter, wow, aren't you impressive? However, it's not real, which means you'll fall out of love with it sooner. There'll be problems with it more dramatically and so on. If it's real, it's something that lasts. It's something that also feels peaceful. So we're all looking for miracles, but it means I'm ready for a miracle in my life, and we learn to say, however, I know that means that I have to have a miracle in here. What does a miracle in here mean? A healing, a forgiveness, these are all synonymous. A miracle in here means healing something, forgiving something, shifting something in here, in my being. See what I'm saying? Attachments, resentments, and so on. So let me just launch into this real immediately here. Think of this. Think of anything you'd like in your life. New car, new house, anything. Your partnership, whatever it happens to be. Healing even, grief. Anything you would like in your life. According to A Course in Miracles, which is really another way of saying, according to Christ consciousness, because that's what the Course is. According to Christ consciousness, you're allowed to have stuff, whether it's emotional stuff or companionship stuff or material things like cars. You're allowed to have stuff, but the Course or Christ consciousness is telling you the only real way to get it is by forgiving something. Not by building up enough money to buy it. That's what our heads tell us. You got to save up money to buy something. The Course is telling us, if you learn to forgive thoroughly enough and deeply enough, it'll give you anything you think you want. And folks have underestimated that. We think we're supposed to only forgive, only on when we really have to have, like when everything's falling apart, or when somebody's really pushed our buttons. Gosh, I guess I probably should dish out that forgiveness this year, maybe once a year. We're being told that forgiveness is the #1 tool for creating miracles. What miracle would you like in your life? He says, forgiveness offers it. Now, that gets tricky to understand in the head. Forgiveness will give you anything you want. Well, no, that doesn't make sense because what I need is a car. How's forgiveness going to give me a car? When you start looking at the idea, I would like a car. Why don't you have one? Because I don't have enough money. What is it inside that you can forgive about money, about lack of money? Whatever it is that makes you think you need to go and work hard, it's called sweat of the brow in Genesis. Whatever makes you think you cannot materialize a car out of thin air, practice forgiving that belief. That's what Christ consciousness is telling us. And it's so profound if you think about it. Anything you want, forgiveness offers it. Just practice forgiveness. You want a miracle of some kind, practice forgiveness. Consistently and constantly. And one more thing about that. Again, people, when they hear forgiveness, there's this whole heavy, dramatic belief system about what forgiveness is. We think it means Okay, let me think. Is there anybody I need to forgive? Oh yeah, I just thought of somebody. As though there's only one or two out there. People do not understand what forgiveness is about. Believe it or not, you have to forgive everything in the universe for believing that it even exists. You have to forgive yourself and all of us for separating from God. You have to forgive yourself for thinking you're a body that can get sick. You do think you're a body. And you do think you're getting older. But yet you're not really. It just looks that way. You think you can get sick, but you actually can't get sick. If you don't agree with me, why are you coming to this particular center? Why do you go to Unity and trust chaplains to pray with you? Because they're affirming you can't be sick. Are you saying they're all liars? Then why are you coming here? Go to a church that affirms your guilt and limitations. You have that option. Knock yourself out. Go someplace that would affirm that. But we're learning. God's will is not what we were taught. You are sinful and you are doomed. God is trying to tell us in so many forms. And one of the most beautiful things I'm noticing is what used to be fundamental religion here and here and here, and so on and so on. Listen and watch this in your own lives. Watch how there's a televangelist that sounds just like your New Thought teachers. You notice that? You got Joyce Meyer sounding just like Reverend Shipley, who used to speak at this church. And you got, over there, Joel Osteen, is sounding like Michael Mirdad. That used to not come together. You're not able to tell fundamental Christian teachers from New Thought teachers. Why? Because what used to be divided is coming together. Does anybody want to say that or notice it? No, because they would be ostracized from their religions, and they are ostracized from their religions when they sound too New Agey. I mean, they criticize them. That Joel Osteen, he's becoming one of those positive thinking New Agers. He's not Christian enough because he's not hateful enough. But the truth is, they're blending because it's God's will that we all come to that understanding that my will, God is saying, has always only been love. Now the fundamentalists that are used to only be saying you're going to go to hell, etc., they're talking about love, forgiveness, acceptance, etc. New Thought teachers are saying that as well. And yet the New Thought teachers, the ones that are growing and waking up, are not having a problem talking about Jesus or Christ. Because there was a time that's old. So they went the direction of no Christ, and the Christy people were all Christian and into hate and judgment, hell and damnation. Notice it's all coming together, and that's called a miracle. Amen. When your mom was speaking like this, only strictly certain culture, religion, race, and you were over here on some other angle, and you start to see commonality, that doesn't mean anybody's giving in and sacrificing their beliefs. There's a way it happens where commonality starts to happen. That's called bridging. It doesn't matter what the topic is. The Holy Spirit of God, its primary purpose, its function, the Holy Spirit, which I call the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother, the Holy Spirit's primary purpose is to bridge us back to God, to bring us home. That's why so many religions talk about call upon the Holy Spirit for a miracle and so on. But we got used to saying, okay, those of us who believe in the term Holy Spirit, we say, Holy Spirit of God, I pray for such and such and such and such. We were still asking as though it's an entity that's going to do us a favor. What we have to understand is, ultimately, the Holy Spirit isn't just wanting to, bridge us who are way down here to God that's way up there. The Holy Spirit's actually trying to bring us closer to God, not just translate messages that are totally opposites. It's trying to bring us closer. So humans are not getting that. So they still talk to the Holy Spirit like it's some other being, and please do me a favor and ask God if I can have a favor today. Like it's a detached messenger. When in fact, what the Holy Spirit's doing, trying to get us to be more like God. Then your answers come because you are, not because you're asking. You see the difference there? Now, if that's true, and it is, the Holy Spirit's job is to bridge, you're eventually supposed to be becoming like the Holy Spirit, not asking continually for favors. Become like me, and you'll have everything you need. It's what Jesus meant when he said, God already knows what your needs are. And humans went, oh, and I mentioned this weekend, but humans go, that means God knows that I need a new toothbrush, and I need a new pair of shoes. Like, we went back to stuff. It meant God knows you only have one need. Not God knows all your needs. You only have one. And it is to come home. If you come home in consciousness, you have no needs. So you only have temporarily one need. Eventually that'll be gone. Temporarily that need is to come home. And the Holy Spirit says, I'll show you how. For now, pray for me, pray and I'll help you guys get stuff and heal. Oh, Holy Spirit, help me heal this person. Holy Spirit, channel through me and let me teach people. I'm going to channel the Holy Spirit. I'm going to speak in tongues. All these wonderful gifts of Spirit. That's all cool. But the Holy Spirit saying, at the end of the day, are any of you becoming like me? And most humans are like, well, we're too busy to hear that because we're celebrating that we got our stuff. I prayed for a new car and I got it. Wow, what did you get? Oh, I had a healing. I had a sore throat. Now it's gone. Wow, praise the Holy Spirit. And we're making it a separate entity and we're excited and giving thanks. The Holy Spirit's like, oh, if only just anybody would listen after you get the car. I still had more to say, but as soon as you got what you wanted, you ignored the rest. Somebody's got to stop and say, I'm sorry about that. What else did you want to share? Whoa! A human that's got an open mind to hear more than their stuff, what they want. Thank you, human being. Those are the Jesuses or the you and me that want to listen to the whole story. Holy Spirit, I prayed that you would give me this new book, and it was gifted to me today. And God, thank you. That's amazing. But wait, I have a feeling you have more for me. Let me set down that book. Thank you, but what else have you got for me? The Holy Spirit then can start channeling through you and give you more. The Holy Spirit could now give you a book to write, not just one to read. That's fine. It gave you just the right book to read. That's cool. That's a miracle. And listen longer, and it starts giving you something maybe to write. Or maybe it gives you an idea. Get a second copy of the book because you're going to run into somebody outside that is supposed to have that book. You see, it's amazing. One of you was sharing in your private session this week. An amazing thing. And I love this because you can see it's happening in all places. Churches too. But all churches, all types of churches, but everywhere. It can happen in your local market. You can have a holy experience in Piggly Wiggly, at some Texas supermarket. That's not a derogatory thing. They actually have a store called that, So it can happen anywhere. So one of you was telling me that you went in and you're having kind of a crisis in life. And you went into a church. It was, I think, a Catholic church. So you went into a Catholic church, and you were sitting there, and the church had a service or whatever. The church emptied out. This one person was sharing. Church emptied out. And then the priest walked over, because they stayed sitting there, and said, I'm supposed to help you today. That means a priest, and some of us have had negative experiences or hearsay about priests and so on. Doesn't matter, because anyone and everyone is learning to be open. The priest is saying, I'm channeling. I'm hearing Spirit talk to me. And sometimes they don't do that. And sometimes Southern Baptist teachers don't do that. Preachers don't, but sometimes they do. Some televangelists don't get it, but some do. It's starting to happen where it's spreading to every place. There's no one tradition or religion that has it. It's starting to spread, which also means the differences are coming together. Okay? So, when we hang in there long enough, what Helen did, Helen wrote A Course in Miracles. And when Helen hung in there long enough, here's what happened to her. She had a vision, and it doesn't matter if you know A Course in Miracles, but the story's still valid. It's this woman, she was having these synchronicities and these strange kinds of experiences, and the voice talking to her, sort of letting her know that God's there with her. And one day, she has a vision. And in the vision, the short version of it is, she sees a scroll. And she goes up to the scroll and she opens the scroll. And she's going to open the scroll, that is. And she slightly opens it. And she's told, if you read the scroll to the left, you'll know everything, like Edgar Cayce, about the past. If you open the scroll to the right, you'll know everything. You'll be able to tell the future like a Nostradamus. You just open left, you got Cayce. Open right, you got Nostradamus. Pretty cool. Almost any human being, well, most wouldn't even be able to have that level of a vision because they're not open to it, basically. But if they did, most are going to go, that's it. I'll take to the right, and I can get to the track tomorrow and start betting. Everybody's going to go what they want out of this. She knows left and right, but right in the middle of the scroll, there's only two words. God is. She unrolls the scroll far enough to see God is. She stops and says, somehow she knew, that's all I need. And she rolls the scroll closed. And then she hears a voice, congratulations, you passed this time. And that's the same test for all of us. I want is to the left or to the right. God's will. That's all we need. And what we do is, well, I know that God's will stuff, but just in case God doesn't know, I need to know the past and the future. And it's just a lack of faith. I'm not giving you like a Christian statement of that's a lack of faith. I'm saying it is factually a lack of faith. You're not trusting that God is enough. If I really understand that God is, I can heal anything from the past and know anything for the future. Because God is. God is all. All I need to do is tap into God is, and I'll have everything. And what we do is we hedge. That's why when we go in and deal with surgeries and stuff of life, divorces, well, hi, nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you. I'll be your new attorney for this divorce. Okay, listen, there's this God is concept, but just in case God fails, I want you to make sure you get everything in the divorce. Go after them, get everything you can. Watch out, be careful. All that stuff of paranoia. It is. And we can tell how faithful we are by just that one thing. How much can I do God is? If I wake up this morning and I've got a school test, or if I've got some sort of test of some kind or an evaluation at work, can I wake up and say, God is? See? When you go up to do a talk in front of people, can you just say, God is? And then it just all comes to you. I remember a speaker once, a pretty well-known speaker, and I was at a conference, and I'm one of the keynote speakers, and this person's one of the keynotes, and there's a few others. And I remember this person saying, Michael, you go up there and you just do this, and I wish I could do that. I have to have my notes. I said, you don't have to. God is. You could just, trust it. And so at this one time, they said it at one conference, and I saw them later in another conference, and they brought it up again, and I said, well, just go for it. Just see what happens. So they went up there, and it's neither good nor bad if you need your notes, but, just see what happens. So she goes up there, and she had her notes, and you could just see she was, can I pull this off? And as a joke, I told this story recently, but as a joke, what we did, the other keynotes, there was me and Greg Braden and a few others sitting up there in the front row. And this person, she's kind of like getting ready to talk, and you can see she's kind of wanting to revert to her notes. So she'd get ready to talk, and I got everybody at the same time to go, oh. And she kind of nervously like, oh, okay, joined it, and then she's like, what are you guys done now? Let me do my talk. So anyway, and we went, again. And we interrupted her 2 or 3 times, and she finally caught on what we were doing. Like, it's okay, don't go to the notes. And then she just kind of put them down and launched. And I don't know to this day, I don't know that she ever went back and needed notes anymore. But that's hard, because another self says, but what if? And that's where one of you had brought up before we officially started, the concept of the what if. What if? What if I eat certain foods? What if? What if I don't do certain things? I must eat a certain way because I'm told vitamin such and such is what makes you healthy. Certain foods will make you unhealthy. And Jesus tells you, who of you by worrying can add a single day to your life? Meaning, worrying about the nutrients is already killing you. Thank God I'm not like you people. I eat only the best. I don't eat that garbage you eat. Just the fact that you think we have garbage, you're already sick. You're judging other people's foods is already making you sick. I'm not saying don't eat healthy. I'm saying judging unhealthy, you're already sick. You're already turning your wonderful holistic foods into toxins anyway. Because in here, you're off. So that's why so many of us have been turned off by sometimes fundamental religions that told us we're naughty, we're bad, we're going to hell. Judge and ye shall be judged. As soon as you tell other people they're doomed, they're going to hell. I don't care if you think you're righteous about it. You're going to hell, but I have reason to believe that because you don't go to my church. By that very statement, that person's already condemned. Because we're all one. As soon as I condemn you for anything, your food intake, your choices, your sexual preferences, your whatever it is, as soon as I judge you for it, a part of me, because you're part of me, a part of me is already judged. See, it doesn't just mean karmically. When you judge others, you're judged. It doesn't just mean karmically. It means you are me. As soon as I judge you, I've already judged a part of myself. Forgiveness means then letting everyone off the hook, which then means you've let yourself off the hook. For every person you have forgiven, a part, a cell in you, let's call it, is brought to peace. Okay? Let's imagine that there's so many, because there are, billions of, obviously, cells in your body, but let's imagine that every being you've ever known make up one of those cells. Even in past lives, every person I've ever known or interacted with makes up one cell in my being. So if a gland is sick, a stomach is sick, all it is a collection of my belief system, my hurts, my wounds. Now I'm not saying you should judge yourself. Geez, this guy's bumming me out. He's saying that if I have a hurt hip or knee or a sore throat, that I'm bad, I'm judgmental. No. You are human. But to forgive is divine. So you learn to see these things, and everything is connected. So you start to realize, I'm actually only on earth to practice forgiveness. You're not here to have kids or grandkids. That's just an aside. You're here only to learn to forgive. So they asked Jesus, what about sex? In Course in Miracles, she asks him, what about sex? And, you think he's going to, be pure, be chaste, He says sex is fine. Do what you want to do. Because you all abuse that anyway. He says, but we're all for it. But here's what he says. We're all for it. Heaven honors sex. But not for the reason you think. Heaven honors sex because when you have sex, you're eventually going to have kids. And when you have kids, you're going to have more people to work on your stuff with. What a weird twist. It's like, I would have, if you were telling me that, if I were Helen hearing that, I'd be like, that's it, no kids. Because you're setting me up. You're setting me up to have to work on stuff. So he's saying the more people you have in your life, more opportunities. And you guys have used those words too at times. It's just an opportunity. The more people, the more opportunities to heal. And it's true. More opportunities to heal. Because those people are going to bring up stuff. Why? Because we're all connected. So you're going to have some racist in your face at some point. You can say, but I don't feel like I'm a racist. You're probably not overtly a racist. Nevertheless, one shows up in your life, it's still forgiveness that you can extend. Someone else shows up with a different issue. An addiction that annoys you. It's still another opportunity to forgive. So we're not here to forgive once in a while. We're actually here to forgive everything. At the end, this is what, the way we twist things. You hear of the last judgment. Everybody in this room has likely heard of the last judgment. It's like, Doomsday, the end of the world, the last judgment, the final judgment day. But nobody bothers to sit. What is that again, judgment day? Well, clearly, it's when God looks at you and says, it is your judgment day. And guess what? Failure. Out of here, to hell. Then what was the point? If everybody just goes to hell, what was the point of us even trying? Judgment day isn't God judging. The truth is, judgment day is when God in you speaks so clearly, you give up judging at all. The last judgment means you no longer have any judgments. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Like, oh, that hadn't occurred to me. The final judgment, judgment day. When you go, I don't think I'll judge anymore. That's what judgment day is. And when they give you this connotation, and at the judgment day, there's going to be this screaming and gnashing of teeth and all this horrible, you know what that is? Your ego going, damn! What do you mean you're not going to listen to me? That's all it is. The gnashing of teeth is just the ego. And it's not dying. You're not like pitchforking it and stabbing it. It's not like some actual gruesome ending. The ego is going to be doing more like just fading away for lack of work. It's just retired. Hey, by the way, we won't be needing you anymore. And even if it were to try to and whine and scream, and as it starts to fade, it doesn't have any volume left anyway. There's a great movie. I've shared this before in workshops in the past, but it's so brilliant. There's a TV show from the 90s. It was called Wise Guy. Anybody remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Undercover and went to the blowout.
Very cool.
The first season was great.
Right on. Oh, yeah. A mobster goes undercover. He gets caught, and they're going to put him in jail. But instead, he goes undercover and helps them crack cases and so on. But each one of these, there's like 3 or 4 episodes so it goes on for 3 or 4 episodes. It's not one. It gives you each subject for a few episodes, so it gets deeper. So in one particular episode or theme, he's got this guy that he has to befriend. He's a mobster, and he has to befriend him like he's his right-hand man. So he gets in, right? Now at some point, when it's all said and done, at the end, the feds come in and bust that guy. And it's this character that catches up to him with a gun and says, you have to give up. He says, man, you betrayed me. He said, no, you're a criminal. But he felt bad. He felt guilty, that he did this, pretending to be a friend, and they did kind of become friends, but you still have your job to do. So he busts the guy, and the guy says, you're not taking me in, and he kills himself. This guy's friend just killed himself because of this guy's work. Capiche? All right. Ooh, that was fitting, wasn't it? So now they bring that theme back up several episodes later. Several episodes later, an arbitrary thing happens. This character is going in for a checkup, just a standard checkup. All the feds, all the officers have to go in eventually, now and again to just get a checkup, psych evaluation, health evaluation. He goes in, but there's some real major criminal mind in the psych ward and sees him and recognizes him and says, I remember that guy. He gets in the computer and types in, dangerous, apprehend him. So this guy comes in, just getting pulse check, and they grab him, tie him up, throw him in the back in the psych ward. They're doing what they think is right. He's like, what are you people doing? I'm an agent. Sure you are. And they don't buy it. So now, the whole thing of him, he's stuck in the hospital. Every time he fights, they just inject him again and knock him out. And how frustrating that would be for anybody, to feel powerless, voiceless, which we have in our lives at times. But what's weirder is each time they inject him and he goes to sleep, he dreams about the guy he betrayed. And the guy's working him over, working his guilt, punishing him, making him go in cold sweats. Then he wakes up, and it's like living a nightmare. You got that? Living a nightmare. So, at some point, this is going on and on and on. And then, finally, because of each layer, he's starting to get more realizations about the truth of what happened in this situation. So finally, he's awake. They go to him. Oh, here's trouble again. They go to inject him. He goes, that's okay. That won't be necessary. And he lies down, closes his eyes, and takes himself into the trance, where he finishes his work with that guy. And he sees that guy going, man, you let me down. He goes, no, I didn't. You were a criminal. You betrayed me. No, I didn't. He answers his demons. And when he does, the bad guy who was haunting him throughout these episodes, throughout this period of all his going under with injections, he's haunting him and torturing him and beating him up and whatever, because the guy believed he did something wrong. This other guy had power to beat him up in his dreams. Got it? Now, this guy's going, wait a minute, what are you doing? He goes, you have no more power. Now, wait a minute. He went from bad guy, kicking him around in the dreams, and he goes, wait. And you see him starting to fade. He goes, wait, what are you doing to me, man? Please, give me some power back. And he's doing all this. Now he goes to what I call the nice cop. Bad cop, nice cop, they used to call it, And so he's now begging for life. And he goes, it's like they had Kung Fu episodes that did this, where he's looking at demons saying, you are what you are. If you're real, you won't fade. And the guy just fades away. When we recognize the valuelessness of addictions, or a people that we thought hold power, they're our love life, they're, that person that I was married to and they did another lifetime they did. When you recognize nothing can happen by chance, nothing happens without some level of my sending a signal that I'm here for that. When we recognize, because forgiveness means forgiving ourselves. I'm forgiving myself for making you think this was okay. Goodbye. It's not just fighting them in courts, but sometimes that's what you're called to have to do. But it's not just defeating them in a physical wrestling match or in court or whatever else. It really comes down to recognizing your own power. And then what you do is you retire everybody. There's not a fight. You just retire everybody. You won't be needed anymore. And that in that movie, the show, he was like, hey, wait, don't let me go. It's a funny thing. They start begging for power because they don't have any more. One time I had, my dad, he was just quite a mean person. And he tended to like to tell me how much he didn't like me. He just was, every time I'd see him, he'd just decide he had to tell me again. So one time, I'm in his car, this is, 25 years ago, and I get in the car, and he starts in. Once again, you this and you that, and you never will amount to anything, and whatever, all his stuff. This goes on for years of my life. By this time, I must be 30. So I've been hearing this for 30 years. I went, first, I felt anxiety hearing it again. I felt anxiety about his tension, everything, it gets you. That's okay. You're not bad. You're not wrong. It'll get you sometimes. But as you grow, you'll learn to see it sooner. Then as you continue to grow, not only do you see it sooner, no, starts to happen. So I felt it. There it is again. What do I do? Stuck in this car. I have an idea. Hey, Dad. It's clear that you don't like me. No, that's right, I don't like you. And you've told me this before. That's right. I've told you, I don't like this about you, I said, I have some great news. Now that you made it so clear, you'll never have to tell me again. And he didn't say anything more. It was telling him, but it was also telling myself, enough is enough. So no boss has the power they seem to have. No person and no thing, no institution. It doesn't have the power that people pretend or think that it has. However, why did we ever think it did? And that's where you have to look at yourself. For a while, you're going to talk about needing to forgive others for being the way they are. But there comes a time where you start to realize there is no them. There is no power. They just look like they have power. They're just a dream. But why did I act like they did have power? Whoa, guess what? Low self-worth. It's really a great meeting of minds. When I have low self-worth, it really comes in pretty handy to have some jerks in my life. You know, it works out really well. I have low self-worth. I'm kind of a predator. Why don't we get together? This is perfect. You can just control my life and stomp me and so forth. I'll do that. I like that. Because they forget who they are. They love to stomp on people. I forget who I am. I tend to like to get stomped on. That's a great meeting, and that's what we call contracts. Unconscious, unspoken, usually unspoken, agreements. Low self-worth, they both have low self-worth, but one pretends to be bigger, one pretends to be smaller, and they work out together till somebody wakes up. Usually the one that's the getting stuff and stomping others, they're not usually going to be the one to wake up. Because it's like, God, I'm getting so much out of this. Why would I want to, break this contract? So those of us who have been in the position to get to be the receiving end of this, it's kind of the burden's on us to be the ones to say, wait a second, no. What do you mean no? No, I don't think I'll do that anymore. I had this friend who's telling me, and he was a funny type, because he was small and kind of squirrely, kind of, hey, how's it going, Michael? Kind of voice, and he's real small frame. And he's telling me, he goes, I had a weird thing happen to me the other day. He said, I was at a 7-Eleven or Circle K or something. It was like San Bernardino, California. He goes, I had the weirdest thing. And he goes, I was applying that stuff you were talking about. These couple of big mean guys, gang members, they came over to me in my car and they said, hey, you're taking us from San Bernardino, Southern California. You're taking us to Fresno. And he's going, but I'm not going to Fresno. And they go, you don't understand, man. Get in the car. You're driving us to Fresno. I don't think you understand. I'm not going to Fresno. And I'm on the phone listening to him tell him. I'm cracking up. Like, he was being so centered he didn't even know how dangerous it was to be telling them no. And he said, and eventually they just said, man, you're nuts. And they left him alone. It's all right if people think you're crazy. Because you're not going crazy, you're just waking up. And someone has decided to say, no more. And my heart goes out to them because it is an inconvenience. People are used to doing something to you, with you, and you're, inconveniencing them. You're such a killjoy, you're raining on their parade. But stick to God. Cling to Christ. Cling to God, what you know is right, and do it. You can even say to people, if the circumstances are appropriate, listen, I know that that's not the way it's been, but this is how it's going to be now. You don't have to be rude about it. You've been an oppressor and I want to be free, so get lost. Because now you're just sounding like you're better than. It's okay to say, we were both dysfunctional, or we were both kind of doing a certain thing. I'm just not doing that anymore. It's okay to own your part. Because you did play a part. And when they say, Pilate talking to Jesus, don't you realize I have the power to crucify you? Just like these guys, you're taking us to Fresno. I'm not going to Fresno. Jesus, Pilate says, don't you realize I have the power to crucify you? And Jesus, just like that guy, except not with that voice, Jesus didn't go, Pilate, I was just thinking. No. But Jesus says, actually, you don't have any power except the power given to you. And people misunderstand what that meant. Do you see what it means in context of tonight? I can have you put to death. You actually can't have anything done except that which is agreed upon. And Jesus is saying, and I'm good with that. Because I'm open to that. In fact, I'm going to use you to have it done. It's kind of funny. You turn the whole thing around, and nobody expects that. You might hear this tonight and go, wow, this really is deep, or it makes sense. That's fine. Then apply it in your own life. Apply it to the abusive partner. Apply it to the selfish parent. Apply it to the addict children, or whatever the case may be. It's not as easy, but it should be as easy. It's just not as easy because of our belief systems and our ego reacting to that. But it's true. Don't overdo it. Don't shame yourself when I say we create things in our lives. Don't shame yourself and say, God, then he's saying I'm bad, I'm responsible. I didn't say anything about it negative or bad. It's just a responsibility. You never will practice forgiveness properly without knowing the concept of responsibility. You cannot practice forgiveness without responsibility. Because if you try it, you're going to be saying, Dear Lord, help me to forgive the jerk. Or whomever it is you're talking about. Responsibility means, help me to forgive us. Because I played a part. You don't have to analyze what the part is. You don't have to judge the part. You don't have to do anything like, my part's worse than their part. It doesn't matter. It's us. And that's why in the art of Ho'oponopono, Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness, you say things along the lines of, oops, my bad, I'm paraphrasing, but it's, I got it. Please forgive me for dragging us both into this. Sorry about that. The truth is, I love you. I don't love the hurtful ego you. I love the real you, the God in you. And thank you for forgiving me and so forth. It's a really beautiful and gentle forgiveness technique. But it means I got it. Ho'oponopono, which is a very powerful, effective forgiveness prayer, isn't a prayer that says, I'm calling in the power of Archangel Michael to, in me and ignite light, pure light that will purge away all your evil, and you will now be forgiven by me, who is much better than you. It doesn't look like that. It's very humble. It's sorry. Sorry for what? I'm sorry that you look like you have different skin color. I'm sorry that you look like you have a different gender. I'm sorry that I think I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, or vice versa. I'm sorry for any label I put on anybody. Because it's not true. It just looks like it. And the last thing I'll share before we are going to take a break. But forgiveness. To be able to say, I really am understanding the relevance of forgiveness, but the relevance of responsibility in forgiveness. I'm really starting to get it now. We're all in this together. Yes, some people have acted out as the perpetrator and some the victims, but really we're all in trouble. So I'm going to start retiring everybody from their roles. And one of those includes, because it was brought up before we started, like people passing away. I'm allowed to say, I do miss you. I do. I wish you were here physically. I could talk to you. I do miss you. That's okay. Acknowledge that you feel what you feel. However, it's an amazing thing to close your eyes and imagine those people as they are now in light and say, oh, there you are. I thought you died. Sorry about that. I thought that when your body died, you died, and you didn't. You're right here. Sorry about that. Okay? Or mom and dad, you didn't have a chance to say goodbye. Close your eyes and see them as they are today and say, I thought you died. I thought I lost my chance to say goodbye. That's not true. That's only the body. You're not a body. And this is a good thing to say. You're not a body. You can't die and you can't even be sick. It releases them from that imagery. If you hold people, this is how I'll never forget. I stood by their bedside. They were so sickly and they were in pain. Do you think that's how they want to be remembered? I can tell you they do not. But why are you choosing to remember them like that? That's actually a little sick. It is. It's a little sick. I know you're an angelic being now, but I want to see you as a frail, in pain human. That's kind of weird. Why don't you just let go and see them as they really are? And that's kind of beautiful, because I'm going to forgive myself for thinking that you could be frail and sick, because you can't be. And they're feeling this extra level and layer of release, but so are you. On that same note, however, when someone passes away, 1, 2, 3 people pass away, just remember this. There's no body that actually passes away. It's concepts that pass away. When you lose a woman in your life, women represent something to you. Whether it's mothering, nurturing, sisterhood, friendship, whatever it is. When someone dies, you lost that. You didn't just lose the person. You lost a whole concept. So, this means that if I have a friend, a female, and she passes away, she's an opportunity for if she was a mean person, for me to say goodbye to that old pattern. Because and she's mean, it died, meanness died. I can say, I refuse to let meanness die. I'm going to get that meanness to arise in someone else. Because that's what humans do. They keep reincarnating problems. Well, they might have gone. Now what am I going to do? Who am I going to be irritated at now? I know. There's a new gal at work. I'll set her up for that. And she shows up at work. You don't like her hairdo. And it's like, And you just start into a new hatred relationship. But you could also have said, wow, when my narcissistic mother died, it is a chance for narcissism to pass away. What if it's the opposite? My loving, nurturing. Oh, I had a grandmother who was so sweet, loving, nurturing. She passed away yesterday. Now, you don't say, I lost loving, sweet. That's what Michael just said. No, I said you could choose to see it as something negative passing away if it's negative. When it's something positive, your grandmother and you should want the same thing. But trust me, your grandmother didn't pass away saying, sorry, nice and sweet dies. You're all alone now. Grandmother's saying, remember how nice and sweet I was? Now you become that. Draw it into your own life and being. Become the message I left you. Not unlike Jesus, who says, I'm going, but I'm leaving you with this. So nobody actually was ever supposed to die and be on a negative note. If they were hurtful, adios. Good, thank God. But it's also now I have to imagine my life without that yucky stuff. And some people can't do it. They just have to manifest it again because of patterns and addictions. But you can say goodbye to it and take it as a ritual, a ceremony of, wow, a whole new opportunity. Same with a job. I lost a job, but I didn't like the job. And the job represented me working someplace that I don't feel valued. Would you like the non-valued self to pass away today? Because that's what's going with the job. No, I lost my job. And you're stuck to it. You got to watch, because underneath it, you have an opportunity to let go of feeling not heard or seen. Man, write it down. Light it up. Light it really. Let it really go as deeply, as thoroughly as you can. Let it go. But as I said, and the ones that are positive. If they're going, does that mean I'm losing? If I'm letting go of negatives when negatives die, am I letting go of positives when positives die? No. What you do is you integrate it and you become the good. Learn from the negatives, absorb and integrate the positives. That's mastery. You're making everything into a positive. The negatives into a positive, positives into a positive. Make sense? So soak this in. Soak in the idea. What are you hearing today about forgiveness? Anything you want in your life, you can have. A miracle brings it. Primary way to create a miracle? Forgiveness. And forgiveness means responsibility. Let me see what I can learn from this. I'm going to learn from the negative, that there was a negative pattern here, and learn to be able to say goodbye to it, not be afraid of saying goodbye to it. Positives, I'm going to say, oh, I can't thank you enough for the wonderful things you brought to me. And now, how can I integrate that into my life? You were so generous. I think I'm going to learn to be generous. That's what I mean by that. You were always so patient. Oh, I think I'm going to start practicing patience. That's what we're talking about. Either way, I keep changing and for the better. And the forgiveness is not just on people we've had in our lives that are challenging. We also, through responsibility, realize I, on some level, was there to learn something too. So I don't just want to forgive the people that seemed hurtful. I better also forgive myself for thinking I needed to learn something there and brought myself into that somehow. You don't have to know how you got there or why you're there, past lives. You don't have to get into all. You can know if it comes up, great. But you don't have to obsess on it or force it. If you have a challenging relationship and you have a feeling, might be past life, and it comes up and you see it in a dream, a vision, a psychic tells you, boom, insights kind of are cool. They connect the dots. But if you don't know, you can still trust that there's some level of connection or lesson and learn it anyway. You don't have to say, well, if this person, took a nail to the paint job of my car, I got to think back. Maybe they had a chariot, and I once, in a past life in Babylon, I might have kicked the chariot wheel, and broke a ball bearing and caused them to have an accident. You don't have to, go back to Ben-Hur times, Just know that there's something there. Yeah, probably. Yeah. There's likely something there, some lesson. And it's kind of beautiful when you do it in a casual way, instead of, I probably was naughty. Instead, my bad. Make it casual so the ego can't use it to pounce on you. All right? When you show, no charge, it can't turn it back on